6 months later, the company had stabilized completely. Cash flow normalized, partners returned, and expansion resumed without noise. The clause deactivated automatically, as designed, without ceremony or announcement. Systems prefer closure without applause. The board reviewed results calmly, recognizing that continuity had been restored through restraint rather than force. They offered permanence next, expanded authority, deeper access, and a future seat inside succession planning. It was framed as respect earned and trust restored. I listened carefully, measuring not opportunity, but timing. People past 50 understand when leverage peaks and when staying too long weakens the lesson. I declined without hesitation. I did not want the throne or visibility that invites unnecessary struggle. Strength remains intact only when departure is deliberate. I wanted proof of discipline working, not applause for survival. Leaving correctly mattered more than remaining powerful. My exit became a negotiation, precise and unemotional. Advisory equity replaced salary. Long-term consulting income ensured continuity without authority conflict. Public acknowledgement corrected the narrative carefully. Contracts closed quietly. Calendars cleared. Stability no longer depended on my presence, and that was success. The heir shook my hand on the final day. Carefully, deliberately, without performance. He had changed. Experience had reached him where advice failed. Some lessons cost millions. Others cost pride. This one cost illusion. He inherited structure instead of fantasy, and the company moved forward accordingly. People over 50 know endings define reputations longer than triumphs. I left with relationships intact and leverage preserved. The board retained memory, not resentment. Staff retained confidence, not confusion. The clause had completed its purpose. Correction ended. Balance held. When I walked away, the company stood upright, no longer leaning on me, and that independence proved the design worked exactly as intended. That outcome mattered more than titles, headlines, or personal validation because durability, not dominance, defines leadership after decades of building, breaking, learning, and choosing restraint over reaction during unpredictable corporate transitions globally. It was not the clause that unsettled him in the end. Documents can be challenged, delayed, or rewritten. What disturbed him was realizing someone had anticipated his arrival long before he claimed the chair. Preparation exposed the difference between inheritance and stewardship. That awareness lingered after meetings ended and offices emptied for the night. He began reviewing older files, searching margins and dates, discovering decisions made quietly without applause. He saw patterns built for endurance, not dominance. The realization that others planned beyond his tenure shook confidence more than any legal trigger. Entitled power expects resistance, not foresight. It prepares for battles, not architectures already standing. This is what mature professionals contribute after decades of work. They bring memory, systems, and leverage that does not announce itself. Experience teaches how to design outcomes rather than chase reactions. Quiet preparation replaces loud authority. Structures outlast moods, ambition, and impulsive leadership cycles that repeat across generations. The founder never intended to shield me personally. He shielded the enterprise from succession driven by ego rather than discipline. He understood affection clouds judgment and speed invites error. Protection was embedded where pride could not reach. That distinction separated sentiment from responsibility and preserved continuity when emotions failed. The boardroom smelled of new money mixed with old arrogance. He sat at the head of the table, barely 40, posture relaxed, voice rehearsed. He never glanced at my resume or acknowledged the years I carried operations while his father faded. His smile was not cruel. It was instructional, teaching everyone how power now entered the room. That quiet shift changed everything permanently inside. He spoke calmly, announcing that I was no longer aligned with the future. The phrase landed clean, bloodless, efficient. Around the table, senior executives lowered their eyes. No one defended history. People past 50 recognized the signal immediately. This was not restructuring or renewal. It was erasure performed publicly, a ritual where a son proved ownership by dismissing memory itself without apology, hesitation, witnesses. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I gathered my belongings with deliberate patience, ignoring the escort waiting outside. Silence was my response because something unseen had already begun moving. Years earlier, during hospital nights and succession planning, his father prepared for this exact moment. My contract carried more than employment. It carried a contingency designed for an heir's impatience alone. The clause rested deep inside the inheritance structure, dormant yet precise. It activated only under one condition: termination ordered by blood rather than wisdom. As security guided me through familiar halls, I sent a single email from my phone. No explanation followed. The subject line confirmed recognition. Activation acknowledged. Systems do not announce themselves. They simply begin adjusting outcomes quietly, methodically, without panic, visible. The company felt nothing that evening. Phones rang. Lights shut off. Confidence remained intact. That illusion mattered. Clauses like this operate on delay, allowing arrogance to settle before consequence arrives. I went home calm, unafraid, already finished with arguments. By morning, processes would start asking questions leadership could not silence. The test had ended. The correction had already begun beyond anyone's control. Authority, legacy. Inheritance documents are not written for sons. They are written for disasters that families refuse to imagine. When the founder felt his strength leaving, he stopped watching competitors and started studying bloodlines. He worried about impatience masquerading as confidence and entitlement wearing the mask of leadership. He planned for ego because ego always arrives early. That was where my role became essential. I was not protected for loyalty or sentiment. I was positioned as a stabilizer inside a system designed to survive poor judgment. The clause was never about money at the beginning. It was about continuity. It measured operational balance through vendor trust, credit stability, and executive cohesion across departments. The language was precise and cold. If an heir removed a protected executive without cause, a review process activated silently. No alerts were issued. No warnings delivered. Timers started running inside agreements most people never read. Every requirement had to remain intact or authority shifted automatically until order returned. Within 72 hours of my dismissal, movement began. A primary lender paused expansion funding for routine verification. A supplier with decades of history requested written assurances. 2 senior managers postponed contract renewals citing internal uncertainty. None of it appeared dramatic. All of it mattered deeply. The heir blamed the market and outside pressure. Advisors dismissed the shifts as temporary turbulence. They assumed influence still flowed through the corner office. They did not know decision authority had quietly rerouted to a neutral executor bound by protocol rather than personality. Compliance had a single remedy. My position or its equivalent required reinstatement with expanded oversight. Growth slowed without damage, waiting for discipline to return. Only then did his voice change. Experience teaches that systems rarely shout. They whisper through paperwork and procedure. Those over 50 understand patience as leverage. While he searched for blame, the framework prepared correction. The missed clause was respected by those who built before, inheriting carefully, deliberately. He called me personally late in the evening after advisors failed him. Not to apologize, but to negotiate control quietly before more damage appeared. His voice softened, measured, rehearsed, as though humility could be summoned on demand when leverage slipped away unexpectedly. He framed the conversation as growth and leadership evolution. Consulting was mentioned, then advisory access, then a quiet return without announcement or correction. I listened without interruption, allowing him to hear his own uncertainty echo across the line. People past 50 recognized this maneuver instantly. When removal is public, invitations return privately to preserve image rather than restore respect. I did not want the position back. I wanted the structure honored exactly as written. The clause rejected negotiation and prohibited shortcuts. It required reinstatement at equal or higher authority, formally recorded, acknowledged by the board, with compensation corrected retroactively. Anything less triggered continued oversight and further containment. His attorneys attempted reinterpretation, citing flexibility and intent. The executor refused calmly. The founder's handwriting removed ambiguity, deliberate and unmistakable. Pressure then arrived from institutions he could not intimidate or replace. Banks adjusted terms. Insurers requested clarification. Long-standing partners remembered who stabilized operations during collapse and who learned leadership from inheritance. Each inquiry tightened the same conclusion without conversation. He still believed pride drove resistance. He misunderstood entirely. This was legacy discipline in motion. His father designed protection because affection clouds judgment and systems must outlive personalities. The company was not punishing him. It was defending continuity, reputation, and survival. Stability carried a cost, and delay increased exposure. Restoring order was no longer optional or personal. Experience teaches that authority tested by structure either matures or fractures. In that moment, he faced his first real inheritance lesson. Power earned obeys rules. Power borrowed resists them until forced to learn patience. Slow correction replaced impulse, and silence became instruction rather than weakness for everyone watching closely across departments, contracts, and leadership expectations. The board meeting appeared routine on calendars, yet everyone felt the tension before sitting down. Silence had replaced confidence, and seasoned directors sensed correction approaching. I was absent from the agenda, which unsettled the air more than confrontation ever could. Power fears what it cannot frame or prepare against. When the executor joined remotely, the room temperature shifted without explanation. Laptops closed, voices softened, and posture straightened instinctively. Metrics followed without commentary, delivered calmly and methodically. Vendor confidence dipped, expansion slowed, and attrition risk surfaced. No opinions were offered because facts required no defense. Then a single sentence entered the room and removed all speculation. Noncompliance, with inheritance continuity protections, remained unresolved. No accusation followed, only procedural clarity. Directors listened carefully, understanding implications that extended beyond leadership preference. This was structure speaking, not emotion, and structure never negotiates. The remedy was read with precision and restraint. Reinstatement followed by authority extension, oversight mandate, and reporting line adjustment. Nothing was debated. Nothing required persuasion. The vote passed quietly, confirming that continuity outweighed comfort. Discipline returned through paperwork rather than raised voices. I was invited inside after the decision concluded. No speeches followed, no explanations offered, only acknowledgement. I avoided the air entirely and focused on the company itself, the structure I had stabilized before succession altered its tone. Acceptance brought no triumph, only inevitability. Legitimate power does not announce itself loudly. It corrects through process, timing, and consequence. That meeting ended without celebration, yet everyone understood the balance had shifted permanently. For those seasoned by decades of work, silence confirmed authority more convincingly than any speech ever could. No one spoke as chairs moved back and files closed. The heir remained seated longer than necessary, absorbing a lesson his title never taught. Experience teaches patience, and patience had prevailed. The company resumed breathing steadily, corrected not by force, but by memory, foresight, and rules written long before ambition arrived quietly now. Nothing unsettles an insecure leader like working beside the person he tried to erase quietly. Proximity exposes contrasts that speeches hide. I returned without celebration, occupying space with calm routine. Hallways remembered me. Systems responded smoothly. Staff watched without commentary. Experience does not announce itself. It resumes. That silent return unsettled authority more than confrontation ever could inside this organization built long before him. I did not gloat or confront him publicly. Precision became my language again. Reports arrived complete, decisions traceable, risks addressed before discussion. The board noticed consistency. Staff noticed relief. Meetings grew quieter, yet heavier. My presence required no performance. Years of restraint carried more authority than enthusiasm, reminding everyone how stability actually looks when leadership ages and ego finally steps aside permanently there quietly. The heir began hesitating during meetings I attended. He explained choices excessively, searched faces for approval, delayed conclusions. Authority inherited often trembles under observation. He issued fewer directives because justification was now required by process. Systems slowed impulsive movement without removing him. Structure teaches patience when personality lacks it, a lesson his father learned through hardship decades earlier that shaped enduring discipline across leadership. He asked fewer questions not from humility, but from constraint. The clause did not remove him. It slowed him. Every decision passed through filters demanding rationale. This mirrored discipline his father once imposed upon himself while building credibility. Maturity arrived through friction rather than mentorship. The table adjusted quietly, revealing who belonged through endurance, not declaration earned over time by consistency, restraint, and results. This was never revenge dressed as patience. It was balance restoring proportion. Balance reveals leadership without accusation. I simply worked. Outcomes spoke. The board observed alignment returning. Staff sensed safety. For those past 50, this truth resonates deeply. Power sustained by systems survives succession. Power driven by impulse eventually submits to structure and teaches every generation the cost of ignoring lessons already paid before. Watching this unfold changed the heir permanently. Fear shifted from opposition to exposure. He learned that real power lies with those who plan silently and exit cleanly. For those over 50, this truth resonates deeply. Respect is earned through preparation, not presence. Influence grows when systems speak on your behalf. The future belongs to those who build quietly, then step aside, leaving structures capable of correcting whoever arrives next without conflict, noise, or permission, ensuring stability long after personalities fade and titles lose meaning. Time confirmed that entitlement fears invisibility most of all, because preparation removes spectacle, leaving accountability exposed, measured, and undeniable, forcing leadership to mature or retreat without drama across markets, boards, institutions, and generations. If you are listening at this stage of life, experience has already taught you hard lessons. You have survived layoffs, betrayals, restructures, and quiet disappointments that never made headlines. What matters now is not proving worth to impatient leaders, but recognizing when dignity requires restraint. Value deepens with time, and wisdom learns to move without noise. At this age, clarity replaces urgency, and strategy replaces reaction. Experience teaches patience, timing, and silence as tools of lasting authority earned slowly authority. Your value is not measured by volume, anger, or public defense. Loud reactions satisfy ego but weaken position. Real leverage is built long before conflict appears. Contracts, clauses, relationships, and documented trust become shields when respect disappears. Preparation allows you to remain calm while others panic. When disrespect arrives, those who planned simply step aside and let systems respond. That quiet distance often delivers justice more effectively than confrontation ever could, especially in later careers where reputation outlives momentary emotion. You do not need revenge to reclaim balance. Revenge keeps you emotionally attached to those who dismissed you. Structure frees you. Structure does not argue, explain, or negotiate feelings. It enforces consequences through process and time. Mature professionals design exits, safeguards, and contingencies quietly. They understand that sometimes being removed activates protections impossible to trigger while staying. Loss becomes leverage when foresight replaces fear and preparation replaces pride. Experience teaches this truth late, but rewards those who listen early carefully. Sometimes the strongest move is allowing dismissal to happen without resistance. Systems speak louder than protests when properly positioned. If you prepare correctly, removal becomes activation rather than defeat. For professionals over 50, this is the final lesson. Stop chasing validation. Build structures that speak when you no longer need to. Let outcomes correct disrespect. Walk away intact. Let the system do what voices never could, calmly, precisely, and permanently. That is how dignity survives careers, eras, and power shifts.